So my business is Milk Quality Pays. I'm Sandy Costello, and I'll talk a little bit about my business. The mission of the business is to ensure clients, which are dairy farmers for the most part, produce and sell milk of the highest quality while optimizing their own farm profitability and maximize customer assurance, which is all of you who are consumers of food product quality. One of the things I mainly do is ensure worker and animal well-being are at the forefront of all decisions that are made on client dairies. And I tend to simplify, which is something that I've been told I'm very good at, very complex information down to where it's usable and folks can make good decisions within a short time period. The vision is to ensure milk quality pays for everybody, so for the consumer as well as for the farmer and for allied industry. So with them, what's in it for me, and I wanted to bring you guys into this so that you are invested in the process. I work with dairy farmers right now as a downturn in the dairy industry, and I'm starting a new business without selling any product, but selling myself and my ability to change and to improve things on the farm. So why is it important to you? High quality food, food at a low cost. The United States pays the lowest amount of our disposable income, that money that we have left over for food in the United States, because of the way it's produced. Retention of well-managed farms in the rural community, well-maintained roads. A lot of us don't realize that a lot of the roads rurally that we bike on, other things are maintained very well because of the dairy farms that are on those roads need to be able to get that milk to the market. Dollars in the community. In Pennsylvania alone, it's a $7 billion industry. And again, I don't know what industries you guys work in that may seem like a drop in the bucket or may seem very important, but the dairy industry is very important here in Pennsylvania. Creates about 60,000 jobs in the state, and 85% of that income is spent locally in our communities. So from a banker perspective, payback on loans, ability to resell property, there are a lot of definite positive reasons for keeping farms in business. I'm just going to highlight this number right here again, but we have about 525,000 cows, dairy cows I'm talking about, not beef animals, so milk producing animals. It's a $7 billion industry, like I said, 60,000. Kind of separated out the central Susquehanna Valley, some of the counties that we've got that are primary dairy counties in the state as well. One of the really cool things about Pennsylvania is, and I love working with large dairies, and that's mainly what I work with, but if you look around Pennsylvania, we're second in the United States for number of small dairies that we have. Those are dairies that the average herd size in Pennsylvania is about 65 animals per farm. That means there are about 6,000 dairies or people that own farms here in Pennsylvania. So keeping those folks in business, keeping them profitable, keeping them continuing to improve management on the farms is win-win for all of us. So I've just kind of pulled out, I've got lots of different packages, things that I offer to farms. Target audience, like I said, is dairy farmer businesses and allied industry. So I do teaching, is one of the things that I do, skills training on farms. I go in and I help resolve specific problems. And I just kind of pulled out one of them, and this is the major one that I provide. I was actually let go from my job in January, which I'm not ashamed of at all. I'm actually very happy about. But one of the things I learned in that job, and you'll find there are probably 0 women doing it, but is to do analysis of milking equipment, see how well it's performing on farm for the cows, the people. Milking speed is important, labor cost, a lot of different things on farm. There's a lot involved in it. One of the things I do, first off, is establish goals of the farm for disease control management. what the expected outcomes are of the farm. What do you want to accomplish by hiring me? And again, I have a lot of ideas myself, but what is the value basically that I'm providing to you and that you're willing to pay me to provide this service on the farm? So we're establishing up front what their expectations are, what my expectations are. This goes through kind of the process, risk assessment, some of the things that I do. And then at the end is a report, but it's not just sending something to the farm, which is typically done. It's going back, working with the farm about what I found, talking, which hopefully we talked about initially, who the key players are on the farm, and working with that team to help to basically get to what those goals are that the farm needs and to maintain that, and then constantly be working to help to upgrade those goals over time. So this is just one little tiny aspect, and some folks think that dairy farming is very simple, very easy. They've got the stereotype of the dairy farmer. This is one aspect of milkability on a farm, is looking at milking speed. How quickly are those animals being milked on the farm, coming to the parlor to be milked, going out of the parlor to be milked? There are a lot of things that are involved in that process from a cow standpoint. Because you want to think it's a biological system that you're milking them 3 times a day. You can only do so much, and things have to work very, very well for it to work. A lot with respect to people. As you know, any business, people is one of the biggest issues in getting people to do what is needed and to understand that equipment and then what the value is. And I can put a dollar value on a lot of that information. Okay, so that's just really, really quickly in a nutshell what I do. Some of the things from brand awareness, and I'm working on a lot of these, but I have a website, I have a blog, which is, I've only got one blog done since May, so that's an area that I definitely need to increase. It's way too long. The article, my husband is very good at critiquing what I do because he has a blog and he's very, very good about doing that on a regular basis. So that's something just to continue to be at the forefront of what's going on. One of the things that I really need help with is working with allied industry, increase awareness of what I'm doing, access to farms and or awareness of farms with problems. You know, it's kind of surprising. You would think that industry, if they knew about me, would bring those problems to me to help work with the farm to resolve, but everybody wants to solve that problem. Their product is going to solve that problem. We don't want to bring in a consultant to do that because then the problem is solved and the farm understands, the producer understands more what to do to improve management. So we're, even people that have really good working relations with, it's really hard to get to the point where they will recommend me, even though they know that I'll do a good job on the farm to get to that next step. Email blast, I've got a big list, and I need to be active and get that going. Training with allied industry, again, that's something. I've got a project proposal I put together for a major manufacturing company, but those things don't happen overnight, so that's something that I'm working with to, again, bring money into the business. I have a LinkedIn network, now have like 4,500 people on my LinkedIn network, which those are all people in the industry or bankers. I've been trying to really, I think I went from like 900 before I started kind of pursuing this with unemployment, but basically pursuing it in January, and I've got about 4,500. Those are people all over the world, internationally, that are renowned experts basically in the areas that I'm working with. So another thing is ads. Typically, I don't think ads work real well, but that potentially is another thing, and everything costs money, which again, I don't have a lot of money to put into that. Farmers don't have a lot of money to pay for my services, so that's in the background, but it's not something I've done at this point. Additive kind of analysis, thinking through other people that may think they provide the same thing that I do, and I'm not going to belabor that at this point, but I have really thought through that, and I've worked in the industry for a while. now. So what would I like from all of you? One is that I really suck at sales, which is cold calling farms, even though I know that I can help, but get to the point where, you know, they've heard of me, but yeah, I've got a vet that does that, or I've got somebody else that does that. So actually getting to the point where I get that business and having the time and money to build that, and that maybe is something I probably have to do regardless, but I'm kind of borderline introvert, so it's really hard for me to do that and say how wonderful I am. The other thing that I really could use help with is grants, which, and again, I'm looking at those, I'm writing them, but so is everybody else right now. But one of the things I did in Wisconsin when I was working, kind of doing the same kind of thing, there were industry grants. So the grant, you had a specific, again, but a very short proposal on what you were going to do, what the outcomes were going to be, and then they helped, so didn't pay me directly, but helped to subsidize the work that I was doing. You know, again, I provided a report at the end of it in terms of what was accomplished, so I'm being accountable for that money that's being used for a specific purpose, but that just doesn't seem to be available here in this state. And again, I work in a lot of other states, but it's just really hard to come by. And then one of the other things I need to do is just get out in the community, which I haven't done at this point, with allied industry. And again, this is, you know, kind of saying how wonderful I am, what I'm doing, how I improve farms, you know, all of that, and then helping them to then provide hopefully names of farms that they think would benefit, possibly to get to that next point. So one of the other things I've got here, I've since January have taken, you know, 3 week-long classes. I'm a learning nerd, but there's also so much going on with technology in the dairy industry right now, and we're very slow, especially in Pennsylvania, but like I said, I work in a lot of other states too, but getting folks to change technology, and often when they do, they really don't understand that technology, so it may be used an nth of the amount that they paid for, you know, very sophisticated artificial intelligence kind of stuff, decision-making stuff, but that there's a huge gap between knowledge and use. So robotics is something I've taken classes to become and continue to work with farms more, just to upgrade my own knowledge to become more knowledgeable about robotics, because I think that's a huge thing on our small dairies in particular, for not being stuck where you've got to milk cows 3 times a day, but being able to have a machine. Again, they're huge, which I think a lot of people don't understand. Maintenance costs and maintenance, you know, you're dealing with a piece of equipment that's got to use, you know, radar to find the teats to be able to put the milking unit on. It's very, very sophisticated. And the products are all made in Europe. Our industry is very, very different in the United States compared to Europe, and the Europeans are, no offense, but are a little slow to make changes to adapt their equipment to the United States market, although they love the United States market and would love to sell more, but they're very, very slow to agree to the fact that's different. So I've probably gone over my time. I just wanted to say one more thing. I'm also certified. Farms now are required. 98% of farms have to have someone come to their farm and evaluate a whole slew of things relative to how their animals are treated on the farm, protocols for how they do things. A lot of these guys are very unprepared for this. At this point, it's a little bit, and I don't want to put down the industry, but it's somewhat not as rigorous as it will become at some point, where people are really fine, you know, with a fine tooth comb going through everything that's being done on the farm. Unfortunately, that's what we're moving to for a lot of different reasons. We as consumers want to know how animals are treated on farms, where we get milk and dairy products from. So I'm certified to actually be an auditor, an evaluator, but my main love is to help farmers to understand why that's important, because a lot of them don't. A lot of veterinarians don't understand why it's important. And then so motivating and then helping to put together those protocols and things that farms need, and making sure that they're using or those protocols get adapted for what the farms actually do, and if it meets with their farm goals. So thank you very much. I know I'm an oddball for multiple reasons. I pride myself on that. But I know it's probably a little bit different than most of you are familiar with, but yes.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
I was thinking, it seems like you understand this industry very well, and you indicated that you felt weak in sales, but you seem to be highly competent, you seem to be very passionate, you seem to care about the industry, and you're sort of instantly likable.
Thank you.
So my question is there a way that you can get in front of your customer directly? This is what in my head, this is the vision I had. You just drive up to a farm and say, this is a lovely cow. And the farmer says, isn't she? And now you have a customer. Right? I mean, that's hokey, but that's, to me, that seems like the story that you could be working from. And then you seem like you could help these farmers who are like, I know what I do, I know how I do it. And you're like, you just need somebody to help you make decisions about the future, to help you prepare for this regulation that's coming, to prepare for new equipment, to deal with this, to blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Let them do what they do best, and then you just facilitate.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like that's what I was thinking, is you got to get in front of people, whether it be like maybe free workshops or something in the regions where you think there's a greater concentration of farms or whatever. Like as soon as people hear you talking for 10 minutes, they'll be sold on your expertise and stuff. And now, as far as like, what sort of service packages do you have? Do you have like monthly retainer fees, or is it like a one-time fee?
No, it's not one time. Well, it can be one time, but what I actually did this before I started working for the milking equipment company I worked with for 4 years, and it was successful because I had a 60% job at Cornell with the quality production program, which kind of fit into it. But and so that has to be part of what I do too, is working with a company or a university for maybe 50% share. Sorry,
that last piece that you ended with, it sounded almost like a compliance sort of thing. I would tend to, like, you're kind of looking. I have relatives out in Missouri who have dairy farms, and it's a lot of work. It's so labor intensive, and they can't take vacations or getting up so early and stuff like that. So on one side of the thing, I hear you talking about efficiency and that sort of thing, which is fantastic. It brings pleasure. But then on the other hand, I hear sort of compliance related, where they're kind of going to be forced to have. I would tend to focus on that first. That like anything that people are forced to do to comply with regulations or whatever, if you can help them get over that and meet that, and then sort of focus on, well, here's how we can get things more efficient and things like that. Okay. I was kind of excited to hear about that compliance-related issue, because that's where you want to start, I think.
Okay, thank you. And that's what...
Unfortunately, that's what people buy. It's like they usually start with like, all right, what am I forced to do?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, which I hate that part of it, but it's going to get more and more regulated, just like the poultry industry and the swine industry. And dairy farmers have been so independent that, and so want to control their own lifestyle, and they can still do that, but they also need to be aware of what's coming down the pike. And
I'm in child nutrition right now, so my whole life is about compliance training. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we land. That's how we make our money. But then what I'm seeing is, now that they've gotten to know us and they trust us, and they see that we're creating great training stuff, now they're bringing us on for the fun stuff. So I think if I would have tried to sell the fun stuff and more efficiency type pleasure stuff first, it would have been a harder sell than, oh my God, we got to get this done. We're required to do this. It has to be done. Let's figure out a way to make it efficient and automated, that sort of thing.
Thank you.
And the other thing I thought of too was, We hired an ex-regulator who had been in this industry for 37 years, so she actually was the auditor type person. So now what her idea is, can we go out and do a pre-audit service so that people would know, because it's going to save them a ton of money if they can capture those problems first before the regulars actually get on site.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm trying to do some of that with, like I called it milkability, but like looking at hawk lesions or things that folks don't see because they're so used to seeing their farm. And then that leads to doing facility assessments and what can be done from a bedding standpoint to make sure those animals are more comfortable and what is the exact cause of getting those lesions. Because that does not look good to the consumer. And it's a function of, again, unfortunately, but it's the way it is, cost. You know, how much can I afford to pay for bedding, to put more bedding down? But now there's somebody watching to see, and it's not always bedding, but often choice of bedding. So, thank you.
I have a thought as well. You know, these small dairy farms, 65 head, are they're poor. You know, that's the reality is that they work hard and they don't have a lot of money. However, there are a lot of companies that support them that rely on them to be profitable. And my thinking is that banking would be the most natural connection because there are banks that specialize in agriculture.
Yeah.
And it may be a situation where your customer is not the farm, your customer is the bank, and the bank says, we're going to send you into farms, 3 months before compliance, because if they don't pass, then they can't pay their loans and they can't buy more cattle. So what I'm wondering is if there may be a way of educating the bankers and educating the milk machine manufacturers and getting them to foot the bill and providing those services free or at low cost to the farmer, because the one suggestion was, do a free public seminar. Well, my wife's family is dairy farmers. They don't go to public seminars. They get up, they milk, they go to bed. They get up, they milk, they go to bed.
So, and part of it was here in Central Susquehanna Valley, you'd have a program at, in Mifflinburg, and Snyder County folks wouldn't come to Union County, it was a mile down the road.
But if the bank says,
but yeah.
we're going to require this of you, and we're going to pay for it, and we're going to send someone to you,
Yeah.
I can see that as being a win for everyone involved, plus it's less sales. You don't have to sell to every farmer. You have to sell to every banker, and they buy services for 50 or 100 farmers.
Yeah, that's the ideal. And then also not having the people feel intimidated, like she's in here watching everything we do. Then people are a little bit less willing to get excited to actually do things. But yeah, so it's got to be a compromise. But I think bankers in particular, I've tried the co-op route, the buyers of the milk, and they're at the point right now that they want to get rid of as many, sorry, this doesn't sound very good, but get rid of as many farms as possible to a certain extent because they've got too much milk coming in, so they can kind of handpick the best farms to maintain milk coming from those farms. But bankers in all communities in Pennsylvania and New York have been very important to the industry in lending money. So coming in as kind of a management consultant for the banks could be win-win for everybody, I think, and being accountable too for that work, as opposed to just going in and doing something but not getting results. So, thank you.
So do they consider this type of farming manufacturing? And could you leverage like the IMC to bring in?
So that's what I was going to say. CEDACOG, and I mentioned it to her, is actually talking to some farms.
Okay.
And so I told her to pass on the information because they're actively connecting with farms that are looking to improve their processes. So customers who are already like wanting to take that step.
Mhm.
But I think, yeah, personally connecting with CEDACOG and just talking to these organizations would be
That would be
really
wonderful.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, a little bit.
I just don't know in this industry, do they think of themselves as manufacturing or not?
In Pennsylvania, there are a few, and they try to avoid that being associated with manufacturing because it implies factory, and then the consumer thinks large
Yeah.
farm with mechanical everything and no care for the animals. So there's a,
Well, there's
Yeah.
there's a revolution in manufacturing going on. It's called Industry 4.0, and it's going, they say it's going to increase GDP by 10%. It's like the biggest thing in 100 years, right? Due to robotics, AI, the cloud, big data, and additive printing or 3D printing, as well as other technologies. But there's all this energy and there's state and federal funding to help educate. I mean, in Pennsylvania, there's the IRC
Mhm.
centers, the IMC in Williamsport is one of them.
Okay,
So they can help. As
Thank
well
you.
as, so I do Lean and Six Sigma consulting.
Okay.
So data-driven decisions, which I see in your, you've got some, here where you're tracking metrics and making decisions, based on the data. So you can take the lessons that manufacturing is using and apply them here, even though you don't call yourself manufacturing.
wonderful. And the whole lean concept is being used by at least one, and I think maybe both of the major robotic manufacturing companies, because in the past it's been small farms that have gotten the robots, like one unit, and now the large farms are getting into it. For example, in New York, the minimum wage is going to go up to $15 an hour. It's really hard with the amount of labor that's required for milking cows, and again, the whole unknowns about immigration, and because it's mainly a Hispanic workforce that are just tremendous to work with, but availability of those folks is going to be more than likely may become very, very difficult. And again, there's a language barrier, so even though we have people that are very good at Hispanic training and working, again, I've got a piled higher and deeper degree and a, public health sciences degree and all this, but to me, it's like every time I go out to a farm, I'm just learning so much more because there's so much to learn. And every farm is different with dynamics of people and cows and machines that are working with cows and making sure that they don't get diseases or, teat integrity so the bacteria can get up in there, and the cow's got to be culled sooner. I mean, there's so much involved in that. So with manufacturing, being able to streamline that, and again, taking the people and the cows as part of that and coming up with, Mark has done some of that. It's just, and I've had courses, but I'm not able to just do it. And I think that would be huge for farmers to understand that whole concept and to work with them on specific management areas to do that. So yes, that would be a huge help for me personally, as well as to help folks that I work with.
I work with a local feed mill, helping them do some lean stuff.
Oh, cool,
And
wonderful.
And I was thinking that, if the dairy farmers are coming to her for feed, and then every farmer has their own unique recipe because they want some additives or antibiotics, or they don't want any of it.
Yeah.
So you could piggyback on her sales and work with her and say, but she works a lot with farms. Are they in your target? I mean, what percent?
When I worked with Penn State Extension, I worked here in the central Susquehanna Valley, and I worked for 5 years down in covering 11 counties, and so Lancaster was part of that. And big client for me was the Amish. They just loved for me to come in at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning and do evaluations and help them, target what they needed to do to make improvements. And then they brag about it to their neighbor in terms of, well, their light got turned off like a half an hour sooner because of what she had suggested that we do. I just loved working with them, but unfortunately, right now it's really difficult, and as you probably know, a lot of those folks, especially the Mennonites, which again, Union Snyder County is one of the top in the country for the steel wheel Mennonites, are moving somewhere else or going into other industries because poultry is a big one, because dairy is just not doing well right now from a milk price standpoint. So I definitely, and Mennonites were a lot more difficult for me to work with being an extension, because I felt like Penn State Extension was a handout. But I worked with a lot of Amish and developed rapport with some really good Mennonite folks too after they saw what I could do, but they took a lot longer and plus I'm female, but that didn't seem to make a difference. Once I started working with them, they didn't have a problem with that at all. At least the ones I worked with, I always say that, they came to me. So the ones that didn't want to work with me just didn't, right? So, I'm sorry, I think you had a question.
Just a couple comments. This is awesome stuff. In any industry like this where you're the buyers and kind of money, you have to find a sales act. I think the banking idea is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on regulatory is a good idea. But in general, I think that should be one of the goals there, is just how to hack this. Because the traditional sales route's not going to work.
Yeah.
You have to hack it, so you have to find who will pay for it. It's not going to be the farmers. The one alternative, I was curious if you had much focus on northern Pennsylvania, because they're a little bit not northern. They have money now.
Yes, okay,
Gas
yeah,
industry.
from, yeah.
And most of them are just leaving there, but it's an interesting area that they might pay for it. And last comment is, and we don't have to respond to this, but just so they should talk. I really think you should focus on the woman-led leadership side of it. I think in the industry at the work, I think there seems to be a lot of, and I heard you say she on the mill side, there's definitely a bond that can happen there.
Mm-hmm.
Really help you there.
Thank you. With guys too. My industry is all guys until recently, but I've thought about that, and something, and again, I'm getting old, but something I'd like to do is mentor young people in this, because there's nobody new coming into the milking equipment side. There are a couple of, high profile veterinarians around the country that fly in and fly out. Unfortunately, I found with the dealerships, a lot of those folks are electricians, they're plumbers, which is, we need those folks on the milking equipment side, but they don't understand the biology of the cow. There's a huge biology associated with milking to get that done in a short period of time without hurting the animal's teeth, to make sure they can keep coming in and get milked, and it can be done very well. But to understand that, and I also, and this is going to sound critical, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it differently, but I really believe it. They've been, and these are folks that I worked with quite a bit, but they don't seem to want to refer me because I don't think they want problems solved. And again, that sounds horrible, but I think they want to be able to solve a problem by selling a product. They don't want somebody to come in and solve the problem, and then they can't come in with their product and sell it to solve the issue. So I maybe just have a chip on my shoulder, and I need to, I'm constantly trying to rethink, okay, are you just being a, grumpy person who's been in the industry for a long time, or are you really seeing what's going on? But we tend to also have somewhat of a mafia out there from an equipment standpoint, where you buy from us or we don't do your repair. We're not there when you have problems, and we have and their pricing on consumables is, 20 to 50% higher than anybody else in the market, but at least farmers feel like they're locked into that. New York, they've come up with other approaches where they formed kind of cooperatives of farmers together, so they have more power in purchasing, or they hire their own people that can do that repair on farm, and then they have more flexibility in terms of buying those consumables. In Pennsylvania, we have some issues, and I'm not sure how to get past that. I mean, I try to be friendly, but part of me just gets really angry too because I see what's seem fair. So, but
Is there any opportunity in setting up one of those cooperatives here?
definitely we don't have anywhere near the large farms, and that's kind of what cooperatives were intended to do, like the milk buying cooperatives, their banking cooperatives, but definitely to have a producer cooperative where in New York they've got people that are product evaluators too, where they're evaluating products, also looking at price, but relative to value of that product to do its specific job. And then, of course, it's the owner's or manager's decision, ultimately, but those people then provide that information, which is kind of what, and there are a lot that aren't
Because
in
what
that,
he was talking
but
about was needing to find a sales hack.
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
if nobody can afford anything, it's partially because
Yep.
your payment could potentially, if you're helping do one of these cooperatives, if you can take that 30% markup, squish it down to 15%,
Yeah.
so you get 15% to play with, you only take 5 out of it to get the 15%. They've all saved 10%, and they feel they have a little bit more power, right? So
Yeah.
there's a possible sales hack to get yourself paid.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can
Yeah.
And you seem really passionate about it. That was the other thing too.
I
There was a
am,
lot of
thank you.
like ready
Yeah,
to fight.
yeah, it gets me in trouble. But yeah,
Well, people love that when you're fighting for them.
yeah.
I mean, see the political
Bosses
climate-
don't like that.
No, but that's why you're on the front line, not in the not working underneath somebody.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure you're aware of like the Jersey and Guernsey associations
Mhm.
of Pennsylvania. But maybe working with them to say, here's the kind of value I want to bring to your businesses, to people already engaged in the industry, and tell them, here's what I'm trying to bring to the table, here's what I have to offer you, here's how we can better help our area. And working as a partnership with them, it might be an easier target right now than the veterinarians, the bankers, the actual equipment producers to really dive in and build those solid relationships with those associations around the state, which I'm sure you're already aware of and trying to do, but
Yep, but I haven't done it, so I think that's a wonderful idea.
and the USDA, has a number of rural business initiatives, reaching out to, I think Alan Robinson is the representative for this area, but they do, the value-added producers grants, which go straight to the farmers to help them improve their efficiency, fund bringing someone like you in to help them with their process management, the rural business development grants, stuff like that are definitely programs you could look into, and like I said, Alan Robinson is the contact for this region.
Okay, thank you. Very helpful.
So real quick before we wrap up, I do want to give, I noticed some